Hey guys, I've got a 60-minute game here against an opponent rated 951, so there's quite a big difference in rating. But what I want to do is I want to look at the analysis of this. I want to work through it. It's actually over in about 20 moves, and try to spot where this player who's rated just under 1000. We're trying to identify the errors, the inaccuracies. No, we're going to do it without the computer, which I think is useful. The computer kind of assumes that everyone plays like a computer plays, but when I'm playing, if I'm playing somebody who's nearly 500 points lower, then there are psychological things in there as well, psychological factors that computers simply don't understand. So I decided to do something, because I'm rated a lot higher, I decided to go completely out of my comfort zone and do a different opening, one that I've never play. Okay, so I played d4, he plays d5, and I think, what the hell, let's go for the Queen's Gambit, because I literally never play it at all. So far so good, by the book. And we've got d takes c4, and now I guess it's principled to develop pieces, so I could maybe bring out my knight, bring out my dark squared bishop, bring that pawn forward to e3, that kind of thing. But I spotted the the obvious fork, so I play queen to a4 with check to see how my opponent responds. So basically, whatever he does, he could block with the bishop, he could block with the queen, he could block with the pawn, which is the recommended move, or he could block with the knight, but whichever way, I think I get to grab the pawn on the next move. So he actually blocks with the bishop, and I grab my pawn back. So we've got a fairly normal position on the board. There's no real advantage or disadvantage at this point. We both still need to develop pieces. There is quite a bit of space here around my king, so, and I noticed that we're a few moves in and I haven't cleared out any of the minor pieces to help my king castle yet. I'm very unlikely to castle on the queen side because I've got a semi-open c-file. My c-pawn is gone. I gambited it away, so I'm not going to be sending my king in that direction. My king's going to want to go to g1 if it castles at all. Okay, so now e6 is pushed, which kind of makes sense. He's preparing to get his dark squared bishop out onto the board somewhere. I think that looks reasonable to me. So now I develop my knights. Generally, knights before bishops is the word on the street, and he brings out his knight to f6 as well. Perfectly decent move. And I decide to bring my bishop out to pin his knight. Right? It's doing a couple of things. It's stopping this knight from moving because it's in the way of the queen, and it's developing a minor piece. So why not? I didn't have to think too hard about that particular move. And now a6. A6, I think, is the first time he's really put a foot wrong in this game. What's a6 doing? It's preventing my queen from going there where it can't go anyway because the bishop's there. Or is he thinking about now pushing b5? But I don't. There's something about that move that just doesn't feel quite right to me. I think something better would have been maybe to break the pin by putting the bishop on e7. That would have been solid, and prepare to castle kingside. I think that would have been pretty good. So now I decide to take a kind of aggressive approach and push e4. So the obvious idea is to attack the defender. Okay, it's one of the standard tactics in chess. This sorry, it's not. It's attacking the pinned piece. Forgive me. Okay, so this piece is pinned, and if I can attack it with a lower value piece, then I may be able to win the piece by capturing with a pawn. Okay, now he figures that out, so he's taking his time. He's used 4 minutes nearly, and he goes ahead and breaks the pin, so that now if I push the pawn, the knight can escape to there or there or there or there, wherever really. So I decide to go ahead and push with the pawn anyway, push e5, get some space. So I'm just trying to needle my opponent. I'm trying to get under his skin. I'm trying to force him to keep reacting to my moves so that he can't really play moves of his own. And then, so he moves his knight to d5, which is a very decent move. It's protected by a pawn, it's right in the middle of the board, and it's controlling a bunch of very useful squares. So, decent move by my opponent there. And now I've got an issue, because I've got two attackers. I've got the bishop and the queen looking at my bishop on g5, and I only have one defender in the shape of my knight. So, one of the most fundamental things that you have to keep doing when you're playing chess is to count attackers and defenders. I think much more experienced players can do this almost automatically. You and I might need to count on our fingers, right? So 1, 2 attackers, 1 defender, that's imbalanced, which means that if he takes, and I take, and he takes back safely, then he's won a piece, and we can't allow that. So I drop my queen back down to c1, where it's also defending the bishop. And now my opponent plays h5, so he's kicking the bishop. This is not an error, I wouldn't say. But does it weaken these light squares? I still have a light squared bishop on the board. I don't know. But maybe it would have been better at this point to think about castling, or even bringing this knight out, possibly, or take the bishop even would have been an option. It's another way to relieve that pressure. But he plays h6, and now I simply drop my bishop back to d2, and now he castles. Now, one thing that you have to realise at this point is where his pieces are. His queen is behind this bishop now. His knights are both on the queen side of the board, and his light squared bishop is stuck behind these two pawns and can't get to the king side, right? I, on the other hand, have a queen and a bishop lined up against this pawn here. I've got a light squared bishop that can enter the fray, and I've got a knight that can also join in. So I think one thing that I notice here is that his pieces are on the wrong side of the board, right? He's just castled king side, but his army is over here, if you know what I mean. So let's see how I try and take advantage of that. So the first thing I do is bring my knight out. We exchange knights. I recapture with the b pawn. The computer says that recapturing with a queen was stronger, but I've got other ideas. This is the thing. The computer doesn't take into account what your plan might be and what you know about your opponent, okay? It's just trying to play as accurately as possible if you're playing a computer. Okay, so I recapture with a pawn, give myself a decent pawn structure in the middle of the board. Knight comes out, and now I bring my light squared bishop out, right? So this is important. So I've got light squared bishop. He's pushed h6 earlier when he didn't have to do it to kick my bishop. I think these unnecessary kick moves, where you're trying to get a piece off of that like sixth rank, can be weakening, and we'll see why. So I'm going to exploit this weakness. So I'm bringing out my light squared bishop into the board. I'm also preparing to castle if I need to, and that might let me then bring my rook round and swing it round to join the attack as well. And now this is a very poor move. I think b5 has no point to it whatsoever, and I think he took a bit of time over that move as well. So what he's failed to do is he's failed to think what the threats are. And my idea is simply bishop b1, queen c2, and then queen h7 checkmate. Right? 3 moves. I'm 3 moves away from checkmate, and he's now doing pawn moves on the wrong side of the board. My king's not on that side of the board, his king's not on that side of the board. There's no activity going on, and this move really, what does it do? It blocks off his own light squared bishop's options in the game. So I think that is actually a poor choice. So I drop my bishop back down to b1 as per the plan. He brings his bishop out, and this is a miscalculation, I think, because if you look here, he's got 1, 2 defenders, and I have against that square 1, 2, 3 attackers. Right? So depending on the value of the pieces, you need to figure it out, but it's absolutely fine for me to go ahead and capture that piece because I'm going to win a pawn, right? Now the computer said that capturing with a knight was better, but I have other ideas for the knight. So here's the thing, right? I'm looking at this diagonal primarily and getting my queen onto there and dropping my queen into h7 with checkmate. My other idea is, if that is frustrated for any reason, I could, if I've got my knight on here, could even reinforce it with a pawn, then the knight is also covering these two squares, right? So I'm figuring that my knight is actually more likely to be a better attacking piece in this situation than my dark squared bishop, so I'm quite happy to swap off my dark squared bishop. Pawn recaptures, has to recapture, and then the knight is there sitting very pretty on g5, and the game finishes quite quickly. So now he spots the threat of maybe the queen coming in like that, so he blocks with g6, and another issue here with e5 as well, that kind of aggressive move earlier on means that the queen can't actually come to here to f6 as well. So I think all told, I think castling kingside at that point in the game was probably inadvisable. Okay, so anyway, so he pushes g6, and I now swinging my queen around. So my idea is now, because I can't go straight down this diagonal, but I've got my knight there, I've got queen h4, and then queen h7 would be mate. And okay, this is the second move that completely baffled me. He's being active in the completely wrong side of the board, and he seems to be ignoring the threat. And it's not hard to figure out this mate in two sequence. So he needs to be thinking about what to do in this situation. So instead of this knight move, I mean, what could he do? What could he do here? He could, for example, push f6, attack the knight, right? My pawn would probably take. Then he could push his rook forward. Maybe then he's got an escape for his king. That's just one idea. I don't know if there's anything with bringing the knight round here. That might be quite good. Let's see, knight to there, queen here. Doesn't stop mate. So now I think he has to maybe move his rook, queen to there, king to there, queen to here. Does nothing because the king can escape. At least it stops checkmate, right? You've got to put king safety first. You cannot win a game of chess if you've already lost it. Okay, so if you get checkmated, it doesn't matter how far ahead you are, it doesn't matter how much more time you've got on your clock. If you get checkmated, you lose the game, and that's it. So this move, putting his knight onto a5, just simply makes no sense at all. I mean, it's a chess move, but there's no point to it whatsoever. I don't know if he's thinking about putting his bishop on there or what, but he's moved his knight from a defended square to an undefended square, and he's put his knight on the rim, right? When you've got a knight on the rim, it's only controlling 4 squares of the board out of its maximum 8, which is a bit silly, right? So you can probably imagine what happens next. And now it's literally too late. Because now if let's say he were to move his rook there, queen comes in with check, there's only one move, king to there, and then the queen takes f7 with checkmate. So with this pointless wasted move here, he's really scuppered his only chance of preventing checkmate. So he pushes a pawn forward, and then queen comes in with mate, and that's it. So what do we learn from this, and more importantly, how can we use any insights we get from this game to become better players, to get past 1000? What do you need to do to get past 1000? And you know, this guy has made reasonable chess moves in many cases, but a couple that were baffling and that I really can't decipher. But primarily, I think the biggest strategic error that he made was in castling. So let's just go back to that point where he castles. Okay, so we're all good. We've lost a pawn each. He can castle, but you like putting your opponent in check or capturing a piece. You have to ask, if I do that move, does it strengthen my position, or does it weaken my position? Does it strengthen my opponent's opportunities in the game, or does it weaken my opponent's or restrict my opponent's opportunities? And quite honestly, he didn't have to castle at that point. I think he would have done quite well, maybe swapping off the bishops. That would have been okay. Maybe bring his queen out then, and then think about bringing out this knight, you know, and castle queenside. He'd have been perfectly all right. But there's something about the exposure on the king side of the board that I think a more experienced person will just be able to read. And you're always thinking about, okay, where am I going to put my bishops? Which side of the board do I want him to castle on? And when he castled that side, I actually said to myself, oh yeah, that's okay. I'm happy about that. Because I knew that my bishops can be involved on that side of the board. It's less easy on this side of the board because I've got these dark square pawns in the middle, right? So this dark square bishop, it can't, you know, where's it going to go? It can't attack this corner of the board, and if the king castles, it's going to be here, right? So what squares do I need to be attacking if the king's on there? Well, I'm going to be attacking like these squares, these ones, but my bishop can't attack those squares because my own pawns are in the way. Okay. So you need to be thinking about the future possibilities and opportunities for all of your pieces, and in this case, my pieces are very comfortable lining up against this side of the board, and my queen, and you know, even this knight can come in, even this knight might follow it in as well, right? I might even castle and then swing my rook around, so you know, loads and loads of possibilities there. So I think the biggest strategic error was castling kingside at the wrong time, and that really is it. You know. So what I want to impress on you is you may be below 1000, you may be below 700, 500. Doesn't matter. As long as you know the rules of chess, you can figure this stuff out. Experience will teach you an awful lot. Listening to like videos from me or all these other people who make chess videos will really help you. But what I want you to know is that it's not about learning tricks. It's not about memorizing loads and loads of theory. To get to be a better chess player, to break through 1000 or 1050 and get into the top half of chess players on chess.com at least, it just takes it's small differences that turn chess games, right? It's those two wasted moves that he made. It was castling at the wrong time. Okay, that is all it takes to turn a game. All right. So hope it's been useful for you, and just start to develop your own strategic thinking in that way, right? What is the point of this move? Another very important thing when you think about beginner's mistakes is, what is my opponent's plan? What is my opponent trying to do? And how can I frustrate that intention? And I think later on in here, you know, when my bishop came out here, I think a player with more experience would have thought, hello, okay, yes, I appreciate why the bishop's come out, but why has it come to that square? Okay, it had a choice of squares to come to. Why that square? Well, that is clearly on a very nice long diagonal that happens to point and finish on h7. Okay, and then he pushes a pawn, right? Bad move. Then the bishop drops back to b1. Why is the bishop dropped back to b1? Why? Right? What other explanation can there be for that move other than bishop wants to get behind the queen? Okay, simple as that. Okay, anyway, hope it's been useful for you. See you next time.